Welcome everyone to another episode of Slasher Scotty. I am your host, Scotty McCoy, and boy, do I have a surprise for all of you. I have on Zoom with me right now professional wrestler and manager Nikita Breznikov. How you doing, Nikita?
I'm doing great, and it's a nice, refreshing change to be on a different show. Not, I
Absolutely.
love wrestling; it's my life, but I'm a horror guy too.
That's awesome. What's your favorite horror movie?
The 1939 Kurt Mac Wolfman.
Nice. That's a good one too. Very good one. I love the Wolfman.
It's
Nice.
yes, yes.
Nice. So, how did you get your start into becoming a professional wrestler and wrestling manager?
I was lucky. I'm gonna steal Lou Gehrig's line. I'm the luckiest son of a bitch on the face of the earth. I was working for the police department in Baltimore at the
Okay.
time. Been a wrestling fan since 1970.
Nice.
So I saw what would come to be a staple in my life later, the cardboard advertisements. This one happened to be in a 7-Eleven that
Mhm.
Nikolai Volkov was coming to a local show.
Nice.
Now, at the time, I was collecting VHS tapes of
Mhm.
matches from the 70s and early 80s. This is how dated it is. Now, of
Mhm.
course, everything's DVD, but so I thought, Nikolai, maybe if I can get there and talk to him, he can give me a line on getting something.
Right.
So I go over to this venue. I'm in uniform, and he comes walking the door. He says, "Hello, Sergeant." I said, "Hey, Nikolai, how you doing?" So as our usual procedure before the show, the guys come out and sell photos, merch tables, like
Right.
everything else. So I go sit and talk with him. I said, I'd like to try to get some more matches. Do you have? He said, "Oh, I don't have none, but I'd pay you. I'd love to get that." I said, "You will not
Nice.
pay me. I owe you for all of the years. I'll make it for you." So I did. I made him a nice, many tapes actually. And then we become friends.
Mhm.
So then I start to bug him to get into the business.
Nice.
And it's like anybody else. I don't care how good you are. If you don't have a sponsor, you ain't getting in that damn door. It's
Yep.
just bottom line.
Mhm.
So I was lucky. He said, you have a good job. You be my manager. I'm like, I don't do that, but okay, that was good. And then that led to, we just after a while was like, Nikolai, I'm bigger than a lot of these goofs. He's like, yeah, we be tag team. And then I was able to take it over from there.
That's awesome. So, what was it like working with Nikolai?
Oh, I miss him every day.
Yeah.
We were like brothers. He passed away about 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was July 29th, and he was just a wonderful guy, completely
Yeah.
different than what you ever saw on television. Of course, then he became a good guy in the 80s after, or
Mhm.
90s after the curtain went down, but it was like, no, not this guy. He was a sweetheart. That'd
Nice.
be a good way to describe him, as a sweetheart.
Nice.
And always clowning, always having a good
Mhm.
time. He would do a magic trick and he was pretty good too. He was
Mhm.
damn good magician. Nikolai couldn't write his name or his address in English, but he could do it with the magic. He would do this one card trick. I swear to this day, I don't know how he does it. He said, "You pick the card." So you take a card, and he said, "Okay, put back." And then he mixes it up. So he said, "Okay, this your card?" And you say, "No." He said, "I know, because your card is under my hat." And I'm like, "Get the shit." I open up like, "It is. How you do
Nice.
that?" And just fantastic. And I mean, there was 52 cards in the deck, and every one was
Mhm.
there, so it was like, well, just wild. He had another trick that was a little bit X-rated. He would do with these rubber balls. I can't talk about that one, but it was always. If you know who Ox Baker is,
Yes. Yep.
from Escape from New York,
Yep.
and
Yep.
great professional wrestler.
Yep.
Ox had the booming voice and the laugh. When he did the ball trick with Ox, oh my God, it brought the house down. It was just hilarious.
That's awesome. That's so awesome. So, what do you believe is
And by the
your
way,
mo Go ahead.
Ox Baker appeared on The Price is Right one time, and it's on
Okay.
YouTube. You just click in Ox Baker, The Price is, and it's hysterical. Because Bob
Nice.
Barker's like, "Oh man, I hope you win." It's like, and he did get to spin the wheel, and it's like, whee!
Nice. That's
But he was
awesome.
cool.
That's
Oh
awesome. And
yes.
no offense to Drew Carey, but Bob Barker, nobody can replace him. Nobody
I
can
grew up
replace
with
him.
Bob Barker.
Yeah, my
Yes.
gram, she watched him all the time when she was alive, and she loved The Price is Right when Bob Barker was on, and then when Drew Carey took over, it's like, nah, can't do it. It's not the same.
Well, I was a younger guy and it's earlier run, and some of those gals that were regulars, it was like, oh baby, I'm tuning in tomorrow. Woo-hoo. Just to see what they were wearing. Hey, we're men. Look, we wouldn't be here if Pop didn't get excited for Mom. Okay, it's just the bottom line.
Exactly.
It only
Exactly.
happens one way, and
Exactly. Simple
the
biology.
hole's gotta go in the hole, and it's gotta be stiff. So you gotta be excited. That's it. That's anatomy.
Absolutely. So, what do you believe was one of your most favorite or best feuds that you had as as a wrestler or even a manager?
My favorite what?
Feud, like wrestling feud.
Oh, feuds. Oh, geez, that's easy because my favorite was Chief J Strongbow growing up.
Mm,
I mean Bruno too, but
yeah.
Chief J Strongbow spoke. I'm like he would blow the dog whistle and I answered, and many of us were like that because he was colorful, crazy. He would you'd see and you'd hear him coming because he had bells, the whole thing. And when he and some people they think I'm going to say Greg Valentine because they did a great angle in 1979 that Valentine broke the Chief's leg. But it's like, I like that because the Chief asked me this one time because I became good friends with him later on in life. And he's like, what's your favorite feud with me, Nikita? And I said, Spiros Arion. What? I said, I know you want me to say Valentine because it was your idea. And that was great. But Spiros Arion in 1974 became partners with the Chief. Now, this was established because Arion was a legitimate good guy back in the 60s and good friends with Bruno. So he was gone for a long, long time. So in 1974, they bring him back. And the whole story was, well, Bruno brings him back to the America, give him a break. And he's like, well, I want to wrestle Bruno. And it's like, oh, wait, two good guys don't wrestle. We don't do that because it's not good box office. That's what they would say, right?
Right.
So they said, I'm going to put you with Chief J Strongbow. I think you guys would be a good tag team. And it worked out nice, but then it was a little bit of a little bit of aggravate. Killer Kowalski started it. He would wear a hood once in a while, the mask. So he would put the foreign object in and headbutt people. So Arion's undefeated. So he's wrestling against Kowalski. So Kowalski puts the foreign object in. So Chief hits the ring to make the save. So ring the bell. Arion loses. So he's hot. He's like, I have never lost. And then he cost me the match. I don't want to be partners no more. But then they put him in the ring with the Valiant Brothers, the champions.
Yeah.
And things were okay. But then the Chief had the sleeper on Jimmy. Johnny comes in as Arion came in. He hits Arion, pushes him aside to stop that. Chief gets hit and bumps Arion. Well, Arion gets knocked out. He's pissed now. He comes back, smashes a chair over the Chief's head. Bruno comes out in street clothes. He's got a white shirt. Bruno's like, what's going on? Then Bruno gets attacked, and it's like the heat was unbelievable. I mean, that's why I know we'll get to the book later when it was real. We believed, and Arion actually got stabbed at one point. It come into the ring because people it was personal. You do something to Chief or Bruno or Bob Backlund, and it's like, that's our family, man. You don't get away with that.
Yeah, absolutely. So what do you believe is the best part about being a wrestler or a manager, and what about the worst?
Well, the best part is living a dream.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the dream because if you said to me, do you think you could ever do that? I'd be like, oh, you crazy. No. Again, I was lucky. But it's like, wow, to love something that much and then get in the door, it's like, this is okay. Now, the hard part, everybody gets hurt and you get hurt multiple times. A lot of driving, a lot of traveling, but that's where Nikolai and I had the most fun because you got to entertain each other. And it was like the Three Stooges -1, and so we would have fun, aggravate the toll takers and anybody in the restaurant along the way. But it is a family. It's
Yeah.
not just the fraternity, it's a family. Because here I am, I come through the door. See, let me back up. I was a severely abused child, and I say that for anybody that's out there that may be going through that. My father was an alcoholic. He beat me, and that was the easy part. The worst part was the psychological abuse with the
Mhm.
names and being treated like dirt.
Mhm.
I turned on the television, there was wrestling for me, and they saved me. Go to
Mhm.
the arena every month. We had monthly shows in Baltimore. There they were. It was like Disney
Nice.
World for, it was like, wow, the guys on television come to life.
Yeah.
So to me, they saved me. And then when I entered their world, they could have just been like, hey, you go figure it out for yourself, kid. But no, they took me under their wing. And I did
Yeah.
come in cocky. I thought I knew everything. I said, Nikolai, I've been watching this 20, 30 years. He's like, you don't know this part of it. And he was right. There was a lot to learn. And they did. They taught me well. See, luckily, being with Nikolai, he had the main events. He's wrestling
Mhm.
people like Bundy, Snuka, all the top names. And
Mhm.
I got to work with Bruno. He was a guest referee in a match. It was Dominic DeNucci against Nikolai. I
Nice.
got hit by Bruno because it was kind of funny. My childhood friend from the Catholic grade school I went to,
Mhm.
he had a physical problem. And here's another thing I talk about. I'm a prostate cancer survivor, 20
Oh
years, this
wow.
July 2nd.
Congratulations.
So get tested and don't wait. Get that blood because, we always worry about the test the doctor does and nobody likes it. But it's like, it's actually kind of late if they can feel it. If it's that swollen,
Mhm.
get a blood test. That's what really saved me.
Okay.
So I go to the hospital. Unfortunately, we had to take an officer for a blood test who was
Mhm.
using drugs. His wife put him in, and it was true.
Mhm.
So while we're at the hospital, here comes this nurse, male nurse, and I'm looking at this guy, and he's real big. My friend was never that big before, so it didn't click on me. But still, he had some mannerisms. It's like, man, something's clicking in my head about this guy. So then he said, okay, my name's Tony. I said, Tony? And I said, wait a sec. I said, Anthony, is that you? And he's like, yeah, who are you? And I'm like, it's me. And he's like, oh my God. So we're hugging, and he's like, the next thing he says, I got Bruno's autograph. I said, I got hit by Bruno. And he's like, what? I said, I'll tell you about it later. So it's like, but
Nice.
just that quick, right out of his mouth, I got Bruno's autograph. That's how it was important to us.
That's awesome. That's really awesome. So as you mentioned, life on the road as a wrestler is grueling. It can be, but you had the most fun doing it as well. But what was life on the road really like? And do you have any interesting road trip stories that you could share?
Sure. I mean, when you have a long road trip,
Mhm.
it's like, sleep in the hotels, which is fine. To
Yeah.
me, I'm a lucky guy. I could sleep anywhere. I could sleep in a phone booth standing up. It doesn't matter. Just let me close my eyes and I'm gone. Like Chief used to say, I'm out before the light. So it's like, yeah, it's nice to be because a lot of people have trouble with the sleep.
Yeah.
Eating, I eat like a dog still to this day. I mean, like tonight, I'm gonna have beans and hot dogs. I don't care. That's what I like. I'm not the healthy
Nice.
eater. I stay in good shape. But to me, coming from a Polish, Italian family background, we ate good food. My grandmother
Mhm.
was never under 200 pounds, and she
Oh
cooked with
wow.
lard. She lived to be 95. So all this other bullshit, I don't know. Whatever. You do what you want to do, but to me, I ate.
Yeah.
So, we would eat in the restaurants. And then what you meet so many people. And to me, I like to be like during the week to see what life is like
Hmm.
in New Jersey, maybe Cincinnati, someplace like that, Ohio. It's like, hey,
Hmm.
this is nice. Just see how people interact and their daily life because he was working for Baltimore County at the time, still Nikolai, and I was working still Baltimore City until I retired with the police. But I, at that time, was a detective, so I had a lot of time that I
Hmm.
could take. I had a nice week schedule, 9 to 5, weekends off, so I could do that. I was
Nice.
able to get out the door. But you were able to see, and a lot of people see, like I tell you, we believed. So
Mhm.
one time we're doing a show, and it was up in New Jersey, and
Mhm.
we had an autograph show in the afternoon, and then nighttime was the wrestling. So I had my all my Russian stuff on.
Mhm.
So Nikolai and I were like, and we had Dominic Danucci with us. So it's like, you know what, we're gonna just go across the street to Wendy's to eat. I said, I ain't taking this shit off. Let's just go. I don't care. You know, by the time we get done, we'll be back. So we're over there standing in line, and there's this old timer. He's got VFW hat and all this stuff. He was pissed. He's looking at me, and I guess he's World War II veteran or whatever. And he wanted to fight me. And luckily, Dominic, I'm like, I'm gonna fight the old guy. I mean, shit. The Dominic stepped in. Dominic Danucci, who trained Mick Foley. That's his great claim to fame. And not
Nice.
just his own career, but he did train Mick Foley. And
Nice.
Dominic was another wonderful human being. He stepped in and smoothed everything up because he was an old timer too, so he could talk the lingo with the guy. And it was like, oh shit,
Oof.
that's good that people get that wild. But because I had a Green Beret wanted to beat the shit out of me one time. It was in somewhere in Ohio, and we were at a skating rink. But you work all kind of venues, you know,
Mhm.
wherever the money is, that's where you are. So this
Right.
guy's at ringside, and I'm doing my job, but he's you know, I'm gonna F you up, man. And I'm like,
Wow.
hey, I had your mother last night. She enjoyed it. Shut up. You know, so sure enough, after the show, there he's outside. I said,
Mhm.
Nikolai, holy shit. There's this guy, he's a Green Beret. He wants to fight. He's like, good luck. I go to the car. I said, you son of a bitch, where you going? So this guy, he's walking up to me. I'm like, oh man, I put the bag down. I pulled out my badge. I'm like, stop.
Nice.
It's all show business. Relax. He's
Yeah.
like, yeah, you don't have no accent now. I said, no, that's all part of the wrestling routine, man. I'm like you. I'm gonna go to work Monday morning for the police department. Well, you had me fooled. I was like, well, good. That's what I'm supposed to do. Have you fooled, you know? But
Yeah.
just relax. Everything is cool. So,
Yeah.
and we become
Yeah.
friends. So that was
And
nice.
it's funny that it's on a side note, I actually live in Baltimore County, which is really interesting. Like with,
I
yeah,
saw some of your posts. Where about, if you can say?
I live in Woodlawn. Woodlawn?
Wow. Now, see, I grew up in the city.
Okay.
I was in, well, they called it Fells Point, but I was like in the neutral zone. I
Right.
was right just below Patterson Park, so I was between
Okay.
Fells Point, Highlandtown, and Canton. I could
Nice.
claim any of the three, but they said Fells Point. So I loved it there. And
Nice.
growing up with the Orioles and Colts, it
Yeah.
was like
Are you still in
sports.
Baltimore, if I may
No,
ask?
I live 35 miles north of Seattle in Everett, Washington.
Oh, nice. Nice.
The wife
Nice.
was from out here, so when I retired from the police department,
Mm-hmm.
she brought me out here. And
Oh,
you know,
nice.
weather is nice, but I miss Baltimore, the crabs, the food.
Yeah,
My God, like, do you ever go to Jimmy's Seafood on
I
Dundalk
did.
Avenue?
Yes. Yeah.
Jeez,
And I live
that's
about
living,
maybe
man.
10 minutes from Inner Harbor. Yep.
Okay, well,
About 10
yeah,
minutes from
you
Inner Harbor.
would coming down Light Street, you'd hit the Inner Harbor, yeah.
Yep.
And Little Italy was always a favorite stop.
Yeah.
And come to find out, years ago when the boys would be in town going to the Civic Center, like Chief, Dominic,
Mm-hmm.
Bruno, they hit Little Italy. It's good eating. Why
Nice.
not?
Yeah,
And they'd be
absolutely.
like, so yeah, I have seen some of your posts, and it's like, yeah, that's Scotty's. He's in Baltimore, and
Yep.
the history. You know, the first death of the Civil War occurred on President Street.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, because it was a
Nice.
Southern sympathizing town, but the police, it was this factions hadn't actually
Mm-hmm.
formed yet, but it broke out, and I think there's a marker
Okay.
down there. There's a house uh, just at the end of Fleet Street. In fact, you can't
Nice.
drive any further. It's right
Yeah.
there, and there's some kind of a building, and they tell you the history. But that's where the first death in the Civil War began on
Nice.
President
I
Street.
was born and raised and mostly lived all my life in northeastern Pennsylvania. And I got a
Oh,
job with the United States Coast Guard after 6 years of college in web and software development. I end up getting a job with the U.S. Coast Guard as their senior web developer, and I moved down here. Yep.
where about in Pennsylvania? I love PA.
About an hour north of Harrisburg. So it's like it's a small town called Ashland.
Zembo Temple Mosque at 3rd and Division Streets in
Yep.
Harrisburg.
You ever hear of Cressona? I mean, not Cressona. Centralia.
Yes, I have.
The underground mine fires. I'm about 2 miles from there.
Now, we just passed the anniversary of 3 Mile Island.
Okay.
So, do you remember that?
Sounds familiar.
1979. I don't know if you were.
Okay.
You were probably
I was
not
born in 89.
89. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we had almost Chernobyl. Okay.
Okay.
It almost melted down, and it was 3 Mile Island was just outside Harrisburg.
Okay.
And I swear that's probably part of my cancer because the wind was blowing in our direction that day.
Oof.
And yeah, one of the reactors almost melted down. They were able to stop it in time. For 3 days, we were thinking this is it. We might not be here to come Monday, but they got it under control.
Yeah, and on a horror movie note, the horror film Silent Hill was based off of Centralia, my neck of the woods of Pennsylvania.
Really?
Yes.
Very
Yep.
cool.
Yep, which is a very interesting fun fact.
Well, you know, when it comes to horror, I said the Wolfman, so I'm a universal nut. When I grew up, okay, as a little guy, we didn't look at them like, oh my God. They were like our friends. Frankenstein, Dracula, the Wolfman.
Yep.
And I got to meet and know and become friends with Ben Chapman, the original creature from the Black Lagoon.
Nice.
Because he was at a show in Baltimore. It was CreepCon 2002, before I went in for surgery, in fact. It was June. And so, you know, we got our table set up and I'm looking in the back and my wife was with us because I was living in Baltimore at the time. And she's like, I know he's back there. I said, I don't care about selling it. I'm going to go see the creature, man. I got to talk to this guy. He was wonderful. He was a great guy. And he looked like it. He looked like the creature. He had that tall, lanky features about him and his hands. But, and Julie Adams, who of course was the other star of the movie.
Yep.
He had a lot of pictures and told stories how he banged her head on the cave wall when he was carrying her off because he said, I couldn't see with the mask. Right. And she's dangling in my arms and it's like, ah! He thinks she's putting on for the movie and it's like, stop, cut. And it's like, what's going on? She's bleeding. And it's like, oh, she banged her head on the cave wall. And so they had to, you know, they fixed her up.
Right. See, I grew up with like Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, and all that. But I also loved my uncle Ken had them, and he got me into them, and I loved them ever since. The Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein and meets the Wolf. You know, all those movies, The Invisible Man and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and the Keystone Cops.
Now, see, you touch on a controversial subject. That was the last appearance of the Universal monsters in Abbott and Costello meets Frankenstein. Some people don't like it because they say that it made them look silly, but it didn't. It's a well done story. I love it.
Yeah, I love it.
And as a fact, for some real horror fans out there, it was only the second time Bela Lugosi portrayed Dracula in the original and that movie.
Absolutely, and I absolutely love Bela Lugosi as Dracula.
Now, John Carradine, he did a good job as Dracula, and I'm a John Carradine fan with his voice and everything else because, like in the Twilight Zone, the episode "The Howling Man," geez, John Carradine. But you know, John Carradine's first appearance was in Bride of Frankenstein.
Okay, nice.
Because the scene with the blind guy. Where Frankenstein escapes and they become friends. One of the villagers, you can't mistake in that voice. It's John Carradine. He didn't get credited yet, but I think that's definitely one of his first appearances.
That's awesome.
Boy, look at his spawn. Jeez.
Right. So back in the day, there was no social media as well. So going back to the wrestling side of things, how was it when there was no social media? What was the difference back then? And because I know people thought it was real, you know what I mean? Like it was actually happening.
Well, see, that's why you were able to keep it under control because there was no social media. The social media was telephone. A guy that if you were lucky enough to know somebody like in Boston or Philadelphia, But then you had long distance charges, and your parents
Yeah.
would beat the hell out of you if they got the phone bill. So it's like you can't talk long.
Yeah.
So odds are you're not going to get the information. There really weren't any sheets yet, newsletters, a few
Mhm.
here and there. They really didn't start to materialize until the early 80s.
Yeah.
And by then, a lot of the cat was out of the bag, but you didn't get a lot of information yet.
Mhm.
Not like today, where uh, they have to actually you leave your cell phone at the door because it's like they don't want any information getting out
Right.
before the pay-per-view or whatever is going to
Yeah.
happen because people like to talk. And I'll tell you another quick story, like
Okay.
movies.
Yeah.
Good movie that I was in called Brush with Danger,
Mhm.
and I'm proud of that. And I'll get into that in detail in a bit. But when we had to do our dubbing, one of the main producer, Olivia Chung,
Mhm.
she brought people down from LA because we
Mhm.
shot half in Seattle, half in LA. But she said it'll be easier than flying people. So she brought the big dubbing people from LA down. And this gal that worked in a lot of the studios, she was shocked because they were taking pictures in the studio that we were recording in. And
Mhm.
she's like, oh my God, you won't do that in LA. She said, they take your cell phone, you leave the studio, you have to pop the trunk. And she said, I got an old beat up car. You basically have to get a crowbar and they go through to make sure that you're not walking out with anything on your cell phone and that you didn't sneak it in. And it's like, yeah, there's a lot of espionage that goes on.
Yeah, that's
It's a lot of
crazy.
money at stake, you know?
Yeah, it really is. And I mean, NDA clauses can only do so much because how are they going to stop you know what I mean? Like, how are they going to be able to find out if you're telling somebody privately what's happening? You know what I mean? And who said what? Like, you know, it really can be. It's a lot of money involved. Why risk it? You know?
Right. And they may have NDA and they sue you, but if you ain't got shit, they're going to lose a lot of money. And it's like, I
Hmm.
stop it at the door, and that's the best way to handle it. That's the
Yeah,
way to go.
absolutely. So the last question I do got for you, do you have anything else that you would like to promote to the listening and viewing audience?
Oh, sure. My book, When It Was Real, it's
Okay,
about the Worldwide Wrestling Federation before it
nice.
became WWE in the 70s, from 1970 to 79. It's not about me, it's about us, the wrestling
Okay,
fans, and what it all meant to us, the sacrifice that
nice.
everybody made. And it's like it was hard because they
Hmm.
would work. Yeah, you get
Yeah,
Madison Square Garden, you get a percentage of the gate, but during the week they would work the high school gyms or like Cowtown, New Jersey. There's a
yeah.
real place called Cowtown, and it like Chief told me, he said we step over the cow shit to get to the ring, but it was a
Yeah,
payday, so you could pay the bills and feed the family. It wasn't
absolutely.
like people think, oh, they're millionaires. No, there's a few, but not many. Like
Yeah.
Hollywood, people don't make all that big money.
You really got to get lucky. You really do. You know what I mean? Like because I mean, how many big name celebrities are out there compared to like everybody trying to get into the business? Like, there's more people that are trying to get into the business and don't make it than there are actual names. You're like, but you see Leonardo DiCaprio, he doesn't get turned down for any movies. Yes, he does. I'm sure he does. He just so happens to land some pretty decent roles because he's a household name.
There's a lot of stories out there, where people audition for things that
Hmm.
are big names that you don't know. Like, okay, like The Wrestler, the movie The Wrestler. I had
Yeah.
a part, not in it, but of it, meeting with Aronofsky before and
Hmm.
Evan Ginsberg, who's been a longtime friend of mine.
Yeah.
They actually wanted Nicolas Cage. He was the
Okay.
first choice. He was kind of small, but they didn't come to terms on the contract. So then it was Mickey
Hmm.
Rourke, who was perfect. I mean, he was a
Yeah.
great choice.
Yeah, absolutely. And
But
like
for
you
me,
said,
the only
go ahead.
other plug is I'm always willing to work acting. I've got multiple credits on IMDb, and I'm
Nice.
good to go. And I love horror. So
That's awesome. Absolutely. And I'll keep you in mind. I have a horror production company called Gravestone Films, and I'll keep you in mind because
you
I
know,
know we're
plugging
in
you,
post
buddy. I'm
production
plugging
on
you.
our we're all it's me and my co-owner Carl Miller, and right now we're in post production of our next movie, and then after that we're gonna be talking about what we want to do next. But I mean we're a small company, just the two of us really. So
I need to put you in touch with somebody, and I'll talk to you off camera about it. And
Okay.
they live in the Baltimore area, and they,
Okay.
Gary and Sue Svila, I got to mention their names. I mean,
Nice.
Gary has a collection of original posters of Universal,
Nice.
and they both have done many, many small budget movies.
Nice.
They're from passion, from the heart. Yeah, I mean, not everybody makes $1 million, like we just said, but
Yeah.
they love what they do. They're great
Yeah.
people.
Absolutely. And sometimes the indie film community is better than Hollywood itself. It doesn't have the funds, but you have the freedom of making what you want without answering to the big studios and all that stuff. Like you can, do what you want to do and go with whatever distributor you want to go with, and you can make the creative decisions you want to do when it's your movie. You don't have any studios and Hollywood directors and Hollywood producers to be like, no, that's not gonna happen. You got your own
And
freedom.
they're just a pain in the ass, big ass is all
It
it
really
is.
is.
It's like, geez, they drive you
Absolutely.
nuts and back.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you so much for joining me tonight. It
My
was a lot
pleasure.
of fun.
I'm glad.
Yeah, it was a lot of
Well,
fun. I definitely will. For anybody listening to this, check out Nikita's book. And where can people buy it if they want to pick up a copy?
it is on crowbarpress.com, CROWBAR, crowbarpress.com.
Okay.
The Kindle version's on Amazon.
Awesome.
And find me on Facebook. I'm always
Awesome.
there. I don't
Awesome.
do everything, but Facebook, yeah, I'm on Facebook.
Awesome. Sounds like a plan. Well, I thank you, Nikita, so much for joining me this evening. And you have a great rest of your evening.
And we'll
All right.
talk again, my friend.
Yep. Sounds good. Bye.